Gandhi. You've probably heard of him. Peaceful guy, right? And, that's about it. In 1893, he did civil rights work in South Africa. 49 years later, he led the Quit India movement. He also led the Salt March.
Non-cooperation movement.
Indian independence advocacy. Wrote the Ahimsa Doctrine. Hind Swaraj.
Okay. He did a lot. So how old do you think he was when he died? Got a number in your head? Something over 100? Now, what if I told you he was assassinated? John F. Kennedy was killed at 46. Does that change your answer? So what's your number now? Unless you already knew about Gandhi, I'm anticipating that your number changed at least once. And to close the loop, he was 78. Now look, guessing isn't a winning strategy, but neither is relying on random information that might not even matter.
Whoa, that's a nice suit.
Bespoke, hand-canvassed, and spalla camicia.
How much?
$25,000.
25,000? Maybe not. What about this one?
$1,500.
I mean, I don't see much difference between the two. Sure, I'll take it.
And that was, once again, anchoring bias. Hopefully you caught it this time. If not, I've got some work to do. So, it's 1974, 3:15 on a Thursday, a quiet afternoon in Greater San Francisco. In a small office stacked with papers, two gentlemen argue back and forth. One leans back in his chair, coffee long cold, the other pacing restlessly. They've been at it for hours, circling one question. Why do intelligent people keep making predictably dumb mistakes? Fast forward to today. These two, Kahneman and Tversky, identified anchoring bias. So what actually is anchoring bias? An unconscious bias in which we rely too heavily on one trait or detail in decision-making. But that doesn't paint the whole story, does it? I think a more accurate description is the tendency to rely too much on the first piece of information you get, which then affects all later judgments. And get this, even when that first piece isn't accurate or relevant. Basically, just assuming the first thing you hear is true. Think back in the suit example, that first piece of information, 25,000, that's the anchor, the first piece of information your brain grabs onto. It anchors your judgment, holding it in place regardless of what comes next. That is why it's called anchoring bias. So your brain takes that number as a starting point for truth, and every judgment you make after that is a comparison to that first number. 1,500 sounds like a steal compared to 25,000. So even if the suit doesn't have all the fancy add-ons, it still feels like a great deal. Same with the Gandhi example. All that true but intentionally anchoring info was meant to shift your guess. You think,
He's done so much. He must have been old.
then came the new anchor, 46 for Kennedy.
Wait a minute. Assassinated? He must have been younger.
Yep, that's anchoring. Your brain latching onto the first thing it hears. Then, when new information comes, whatever feels most normal becomes the new anchor. It doesn't matter if it's right, it just has to sound good enough. This is the conclusion Tversky and Kahneman reached and is now widely seen as the reason why smart people like yourself can be predictably and confidently wrong. Now, what can you do with this information? There's literally 0 point learning it if you won't remember it or use it, which is exactly why I used Gandhi. Your brain remembers best through association, so when you think of Gandhi, you'll think of anchoring bias. But I still haven't answered the question, how do you actually use it? First, noticing it. There are rules to spot anchoring, but you're not going to remember a few rules, so let's run through them and turn them into one instead. Rule 1. The more the first number sounds precise or confident, the more likely you are to anchor to it. Rule 2. If you don't know where the first number came from, just what the number was, then you were probably anchored. Rule 3. If you're ever comparing two things, one thing higher, one lower, that's anchoring too. I could go on, but the point and the takeaway is the best way to spot anchoring is noticing when a number just feels legit before you've even thought about it. Got it? Good. Now, preventing it. The easiest way to prevent anchoring bias is just knowing what normal is. Certainty is undoubtedly the strongest lever to prevent anchoring. There are plenty of sources out there for you to figure out what normal is, and it requires effort. I know, but that's on you. But if you still don't know what a normal range is, then you've got to break out of autopilot and think. So, what does thinking look like here? Now, we know that Tversky and Kahneman identified anchoring bias. But the antidote, considering the opposite, came a little bit later from a second generation of research by Lee Ross and Charles Lord. Basically, when you force yourself to imagine why your first answer or number might be wrong, your brain breaks out of its comfort zone. That's considering the opposite. So when you notice you don't know the true number and you're being anchored, all you've got to do is just break the autopilot reflex. That quick,
Wow, this one's cheaper.
catch it, stop yourself, think and ask.
Wait, would I still think this if I'd seen the cheaper one first?
That's internal debating, which alone is enough to force awareness, and awareness kills anchoring. Do that, and my job here is done. But my job isn't done if you forget this in 15 minutes, so to summarize, anchoring bias is when the first piece of information you get sets what your sense of normal is, even if it's way off. Noticing it requires you to catch yourself when a number just feels legit before you've even thought about it. And to prevent it, you have to know what something's really worth. Or stop doom scrolling long enough to actually think. Your homework for today is to comment or just tell yourself one example of anchoring that had nothing to do with buying something. Like maybe a friend saying, "Don't expect this to be good." If you've got feedback for me, tell me below. And if you prefer this kind of teaching to how it's done in school, subscribe, because that's exactly what Suited is.